Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Moed Katan. We are up to Perek Aleph Mishnah Bet. Today's Mishnah should be Le'ilum Nishmat Neria ben Svetlana and Bayev Nediyahu ben Burcha Israelov Minuchatam Began Eden Amen. And Avdi ben Chaim Nachaim for the Refuah Shalem of Daniel Shalom ben Rosa Betoch Shar Chorei Israel. The Mishnah continues its discussion about the prohibition of doing melacha that requires great effort on Chol HaMoed, even to prevent a loss. Like the previous Mishnah, this one deals with Shemitah as well. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says, En osin et ha'ama batchila b'moed. We may not dig a new irrigation canal, which is a ditch used to direct water to a field or from one field into another during Chol HaMoed, because it requires great effort. Ubashviit, or during Shemitah, because such digging appears to be like hoeing, which is forbidden during Shemitah. Hoeing is a kind of digging that is done to aid the growth of plants. Although one is allowed to expend great effort during Shemitah, digging a hole for a new canal is rabbinically prohibited because it might appear to others as hoeing, which is a biblical transgression. The sages disagree with respect to Shemitah. V'chachamim omrim. However, the sages say, Osin et ha'ama batchila b'shvit. We may dig a new irrigation canal during Shemitah. The sages are not concerned that digging a new canal may seem like hoeing, because the two actions are quite different. When one digs a canal, he tosses the earth aside to make room for the canal, while one who hoes turns over the soil in its place. Umtakenin et hamkunkalot b'moed. On Chol HaMoed, we may only repair damaged canals and not dig new ones. The sages agree with Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah that making a new canal is forbidden on Chol HaMoed because of the effort involved. They mention here that repairing an existing canal by removing earth that had fallen into it and was blocking the flow of water is permitted, because that does not require great effort. Although it was taught earlier in Mishnah 1 that if the sides of a spring collapse, one is forbidden to repair them, that is because such a repair requires actual construction, which is strenuous. Here we refer to repairing a canal by removing earth from it, which can be done with relatively little effort. Another category of melacha allowed on Chol HaMoed is tzorchei rabim, public needs. The sages allowed people to work on Chol HaMoed for the sake of a public need, because they are not busy with their own work then and are available to help. If the repairs would be left until after the festival, when everyone returns to their regular job, the repairs would never be made. So unlike the previously discussed exception of melacha needed to prevent monetary loss, work that meets a public need is permitted even if it requires great effort. And Mishnah gives examples of this kind of work. Umtaknin et kilkulei hamayim shebirshut harabim. We may repair damaged cisterns, underground tanks used to collect rainwater for drinking that are in the public domain. If a cistern is cracked, dirt and sewage from nearby sewage pipes will enter the public drinking supply. V'chotetin otan, we may clear them out by removing pebbles or dirt that have fallen into them. Umtaknin et hadrachim v'et harchovot, we may repair the wide roads and the narrow streets. Vet mikvot amayim, and the mikvahs, meaning of a public mikvah, requires cleaning, we may clean it. Additionally, if it contains less than minimum 40 seah of rainwater, we may fill it to the necessary level. V'osin kol tzorchei harabim, and we attend to all other public needs as well, including digging new cisterns if they will be needed by the public on Yom Tov. Even work that meets a public need is subject to certain restrictions. It may not be done in a professional manner, ma'aseh uman, unless it is required for the Yom Tov itself. Since cisterns must be dug in a professional manner, this work is permitted only if the public will need the water on Yom Tov. And the Mishnah's previous cases, repairing old cisterns, roads, and mikvahs, the work is permitted even if not needed for the Yom Tov, because it can be done in a non-professional manner. We call maaseh hedyot. Another rule concerning work on Chol HaMoed is that even permitted work may not be scheduled for Chol HaMoed. The Mishnah states two exceptions to this rule. Umtzainin et hakvarot. We may mark graves on Chol HaMoed to warn passerby of their presence. If a person touches or stands on a grave, or even if he is under the same covering, such as the overhanging branch of a tree, as a grave, he becomes tameh, impure. Therefore, it was customary to mark graves by pouring lime over them. This served to warn people who had to remain ta'ol, for example, those who eat tirumah, to stay away. Marking graves in this way is permitted on Chol HaMoed because it does not require effort. A court may even schedule this task for Chol HaMoed because volunteers are available then to do the work. V'yotzin af al kilaim, and agents of the court may even go out to inspect fields for kilaim on Chol HaMoed and uproot any that they find. The word af here, the commentators explain when we say V'yotzin af al kilaim, is out of place here and appears only because this same phrase appears in the first Mishnah in Shkalim where the word af does fit. So they don't really paid that much attention to that word. V'yotzin afa lekilayim, agents of the court may even go out to inspect fields for kilayim. The Torah forbids certain mixtures of different species of plants, what we call kilayim. The prohibition includes not only planting kilayim, but also allowing it to remain in one's property, even if it was planted by a non-Jew or grew naturally, as Shulchan Aruch discusses in Yoredeah, chapter 297, halakha 2. In order to safeguard against transgressing the laws of kilayim, the court would appoint agents to inspect people's fields and uproot whatever kilayim they find. The commentaries explain that this task would be scheduled for Chol Moed because the court's agents were paid from the temple treasury, the Trumat Lishka, and on Chol Moed they were generally not busy and were prepared to work for less pay. Uprooting kilayim is not forbidden under the Melacha of Kotzel reaping, because that melacha is limited to uprooting with intent to use the plant, while uprooting kilayim is purely a destructive act, what we call kinkur. The Mishnah says, again, agents of the court may even go out to inspect fields for kilayim on Chol Moed and uproot any that they find. That is the end of Mishnah Bet. Mishnah Gimel now returns to its discussion of watering crops on Chol Moed. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, Moshchim et hamayim meilan neilan. We may draw water from one tree to another tree on Chol Moed, meaning if a puddle of water formed around a tree, a person may make a small channel from it to other trees in order to irrigate them. The trees mentioned here can survive on rainfall alone, so irrigating them is not needed to prevent damage, but only to increase their yield. Nevertheless, it is permitted because diverting water in this manner requires almost no effort. However, this method of irrigation is permitted only if one does not water the entire field, which requires significant effort. Now, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov differentiates here between minimal effort and significant effort. Where the effort is minimal, the melacha of watering is permitted even if it is not needed to prevent a loss, but only to increase profit. This is Rabbi Eliezer's first ruling, in which he permits the minimal effort of drawing water from one tree to another, even though the trees can survive on rainfall alone, and the extra water serves only to increase their yield. In his second ruling, he forbids watering the entire field, because that involves a significant effort, which is permitted only to avert a loss. Now, these rulings are fully consistent with Mishnah 1, which prohibits effort even to prevent an actual loss, because that Mishnah refers to great effort. The Mishnah now speaks of plants that cannot survive in rainwater alone, need some irrigation, but are not irrigated every day. Zra'im shelo shatu lifnei moed lo yashkem b'moed. Plants that were not watered regularly before the festival may not be watered in Chol Moed. Although these plants require irrigation in order to survive, since they are not accustomed to being irrigated on a regular basis, no harm will come to them if they are not watered for a few days. Therefore, since irrigating them entails significant effort, it is forbidden on Chol Moed. Now the sages disagree with the last two rulings, v'chachamim matirin bazeh u'bazeh. But the sages permit watering both in this case and in that case. They permit both watering an entire field that can survive on rainwater alone and watering plants that do not require constant irrigation, even though neither activity is needed to prevent a loss. And this is because the sages permit melachan chol moed not only to prevent a loss, but even to increase profit. The sages hold that just as it is permitted to perform melachat to prevent a loss, so it is permitted to in order to increase profit. Therefore, even though watering an entire field requires significant effort and serves only to increase its yield, it is permitted. The first Mishnah implied that a person may water an entire field on Chol Moed only if it cannot survive on rainfall alone, and therefore requires irrigation to prevent an actual loss. That Mishnah accords with the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov and now with the sages who permit watering an entire field even to increase profit. And the Rav does tell us, the halacha ki Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, the halacha follows the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, the stam manitin mashkin bet hashlachin dil el kavateh. Because we hold, like the first Mishnah that we said earlier on in chapter 1, that you can only, in Mishnah 1, that you may only water the field that needs constant irrigation, because if you will not do so, his crops will be damaged. However, the Rav does add, miu sadeh lacha shel karka shela kemotit, a moist field that its ground is like mud, you would say, teats, like mud. Mutar lashkota, you are allowed to water it. B'moed on moed afilu leRabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, even according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, d'chzraim sheshetu lifnei moed damu, because they resemble plants that were watered regularly before the festival, and therefore you can water them on the festival. And that is the Rabotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.